Welcome to Flourish. I am so excited to be able to bring you a platform that is dedicated to equipping you for impact. All right, so today we are going to be talking about productivity. Productivity is like one of my favorite topics to talk about because I think that you guys can attest when you are trying to make an impact, you're trying to do great things and big things. If you're a mom, if you're a career woman, if you have anything going on in your life, you're seeking to do it effectively and be more productive. And so my constant journey is just thinking about how I can do what I do better and more efficiently, and not burn out. So today we're going to be attacking the topic of productivity. We're going to be giving you guys some of our productivity hacks, tips, and tricks, and just having fun with this conversation. It's a fun conversation for me.
I totally agree, Saporia. Productivity, the conversation on productivity is so huge, and it's one of the reasons why I believe that I like, the discussion and activation of productivity so much. I have had just an incredible week. I feel like I have gone from appointment to appointment, assignment to assignment. And if I were not incorporating some of the productivity tools that I've learned over the years,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, I would probably be a nervous wreck today. Okay. So this is just a fantastic topic. And when I think about productivity, which again is already stated, it's just it's a huge discussion because it's more than just habits.
Yeah.
There's so many tools for productivity. We can use software and,
Mm-hmm.
personality issues, come into
Exactly.
play. And, what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me. And what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you because we're two different people.
Yeah.
Some people are morning people, some people are evening people or night people,
Yeah.
or whatever. So the idea of getting up early in the morning may not work, and just being able to understand, your assignment. So I love this topic,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that, we're able to just, kind of have this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
around how to be more productive.
Yeah, and I think that if you're um not within an environment where you're like forced to be productive. I know when I transitioned from school into corporate America, or just into just being an adult, being out of a structural setting where it's like, okay, at 10 o'clock, I go to this class, then I go to this class. You're kind of in a mode of productivity when you're in school because it's very structured. But then you get into a place where it's like, okay, now I'm running my own life and what kind of works for me? And I think that that's one of the things too that I had to discover is like, what is my natural rhythm? Waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember at one point I was just trying to completely revamp and hack my life. And one of the things that all millionaires talk about is like this millionaire morning. You wake up super early, and the idea is because you're waking up so much earlier, you're going to have so many more hours in the day. And so I would wake up at 5 a.m. and get to working or journaling or whatever I would do at 5 o'clock in the morning. But by 11 a.m., I was worn out. It was like I had already lived the entire day. And so at 11 a.m., when I need to be in meetings paying attention, I'm like dozing off because I've
Right,
been up since
right,
5 o'clock. And so I'm like,
right.
hey, this doesn't really work for me. So I think that that's one of the things to think about, whether you're a morning person or an evening person. Like what really, you could be a midday person. I know that I'm a midday person. Around 2 to 3 o'clock, it's like my brain like gets to going and I get some of my best ideas during that time. So I think figuring out what your flow is also good.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point. I read a book, I love reading, but I read this particular book. The title of it is The Artist's Way. And in The Artist's Way, one of the things that the author talks about, is, getting up in the morning and writing 3 pages of thought, 3 pages, handwritten pages. And I'm like, you know what, this is such a good book. But you know what, the idea of getting up in the morning, writing 3 pages of just I don't have 3 pages of thought, to write down, that, early in the morning. And so, here again, there are a lot of tools out there, that can be utilized, in becoming more productive. But you got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
What works for your temperament, what works for your personality. You mentioned midday, being, a midday productive person. The very time that I'm not productive is midday. I'm productive. I can get up early in the morning and, I can do my reading and, planning and whatever. And then midday is my downtime, but then I can kick back in at 8 o'clock at night and work until 12 midnight.
Yeah.
And certainly, one of the things like you were mentioning about, being in a structured environment, being in school, and even, for those who are in the workplace, who have a 9 to 5, and so you have a schedule, you have meetings or whatever. So, that's kind of, what I guess I'll refer to as structured productivity.
Yeah.
But when you find yourself, maybe self-employed, an entrepreneur, self-employed, or you're working from home and you don't have those imposed structures, you have to figure out ways, to be productive. And one of the things that, I like to do is even, as a person who for many, many years, I've been, self-employed and, or had the latitude of being able to work from home. And so I established a schedule, for working at home, so that, I know that, between this hour and these are the things that I need to accomplish, today.
I agree. And I think that, so we're going to be giving you guys some, specific productivity tips, to manage your life better, especially if, I think that that's a good point, if you are an entrepreneur or if you are like side hustling. I know for me, I have a full-time, corporate job, but I also have businesses on the side. And so I still have to be, in my personal time, I still have to be productive with those things. So if you have things in your personal time that you have to manage, and you don't have that structural, productivity, I think that these tips will really help you, to be more productive in your personal endeavors. So I'll let you go first with your with your first one.
Okay, well, one of the books that we both just recently read is titled Atomic Habits.
Yep.
It's by James Clear. And one of the things that I am I like to learn principle, but I like to also know application. I need what are the tangible steps to apply the principles that we've learned. And in James Clear's book, one of the really good, I think, principles that I see there is he talks about, forgetting about goals and focusing on systems. And when he says, his point is that, there's a difference between goals and systems. A goal is your objective, what you want to accomplish, but a system in turn is, okay, I want to accomplish this, but how do I do it? What are the steps, to getting there? because a goal without the necessarily steps to accomplish it is just something that you've written on paper, but it's something that will never ever see activation. So his thing is, focus on systems, just like, for example, he gives the example of, say, like a coach, let's say a football coach. A football coach might have the goal of, winning the championship. Okay, that's an admirable goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but now how do you get there?
Yeah.
What are the systems that you're going to put in place in order to accomplish the goal?
Yeah.
And so, you need to have, you need to recruit good players. You need to recruit skilled players. That's part of the system. You need to have regular routine practices.
Mm-hmm.
That's part, of the system. You need to identify the skills that need to be improved. That's part of the system. So I just thought, that concept of focusing on systems, and, even in the title of the book, it may say forget about goals, but he's not meaning actually forget about goals, because you know what, when you're going to be productive, you have to have a goal. You have to have some place you're going. You don't just get in a car and start driving.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You get in a car, with the intention that you're going to a particular place, and you have a route. And so when you talk about systems, the system becomes the route for getting to your goal.
I agree. I love that one. I think that goes into one that I have around a system. So when you talk about like something tangible that you can use to implement a system, Kanban boards are so amazing in terms of implementing systems. So you guys have probably seen a Kanban board, just didn't know that's what it's called. So Kanban boards are like what the system Asana is, or Monday.com. And what these boards do is you have cards on the board. And what it helps you to do is you have different stages that these things need to be accomplished. And you move them across the board as the thing is being accomplished. So what I like and why it helps me to be productive is it helps me to visually see what are the things that need to happen in order to get this to the done column. Mm-hmm. So for example, in the video editing or video filming, right, you have different steps. So I have a separate Kanban board for the videos where I will have one that says, a column that says ready to film. Then I have a column that says script ready. Then I have a column that says ready for edit with editor. And so as I move it across the board, I can see, where it's going, ready to market, ready to publish. And that for me just really helped me to stay organized with what it is that I'm trying to do. So Kanban boards, they're a system that you can physically implement and put your tasks, your goals, and what you have to do inside of that system and move them across the board. They're also customizable. And so the good thing about that is you can have different columns just by the way that you think. And I think that it really has helped me because I think that as a creative plus a strategic person, I need both. I need visual beauty and I need the strategic system to work. And so it offers both. So Kanban boards, great system.
Okay. That I like that idea. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Especially as a person who's been just recently introduced to Asana.
Yeah.
And utilizing Google Docs, and everything. What kind of advice would you give to people who are not as proficient in using, these, e-systems? What would you think, what would be a helpful process, for someone who's not that proficient, in learning those systems?
Yeah, so I think with any habit that you're trying to develop or be proficient at, it's going to take practice. Don't expect to just one time use it and it's going to be working. automatically. It's like you can iterate and improve it
Mhm.
over time. So I would say that's one thing. Something that I would recommend, that I am only recommending it because I know it's good to do, but I hate to do it, is to watch tutorials. Watch the way other people are using the same system. In fact, my idea for my Kanban board, specifically around filming, came from this doctor that I love to watch on YouTube. And he's like, how am I a doctor plus a YouTuber? Let me show you my Kanban board. And so I used his Kanban board for mine. So just watching the way other people use the tools can really help, because it can jog those ideas and give you, different thoughts around how to use it. And then I would also say, I'm a proponent of technology. I work with technology. I develop technology. I love it. But I also am not against an analog system. I'm also a writer. So some things cannot be put inside of an electronic system. So if you're not a person where you know that you're going to go online and check it, I'm at my computer naturally every day because it's a part of my job.
Mhm.
But if you're not a person that you know that your computer is a part of your everyday habit, you're probably, or your phone or whatever, you're probably not going to look at that board. So you have to implement something that either you're going to change and implement the computer into your daily habit,
Mhm.
or you're just going to have to use analog or something that you will look at every day. Something too is that a Kanban board can also be drawn. So you can have a Kanban board on your wall with Post-it notes,
Oh,
and move it across the
good.
board in your office.
That's good. That's good. That's great. I want to share. I want to share another principle, from Atomic Habits.
Mhm.
Another thing that, Clear talks about, is that productivity requires a change in habits.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it requires a change in habits. You cannot become productive by doing the same old thing.
Yep.
If you want to change your outcome, if you want a different outcome, then you're going to have to change your habits.
Yep.
If you want to be productive, you're going to have to change your habits.
Mhm.
Okay, a new routine, must be established.
Yep.
The same behavior will get you the same results. And so, I think about it as we have this conversation about productivity. Before a person, can start to implement any of these tools, you have to think in terms of, what am I doing that is self-defeating?
Yes. Yes.
Is it, am I sleeping too late, or am I staying up too late, or am I watching too much? You have to start to think in terms of what your current self-defeating habits are,
I agree.
and then and then stop allowing yourself to give yourself a pass.
Yep.
Okay, to not, you have to stop making up excuses. Some people say, well, this is just the way I am. Well, but just the way you are is not working.
Yep.
Some people say, well, I can't go here or there because I'm bad with directions. Well, you know what? A wonderful thing has happened, especially for people who can't get around the corner. There's this thing called GPS.
Addicted to my
Right, Sephora? We have to stop this self-defeating,
Yes.
conversation. We have to be very conscientious about what our self-talk
Mm-hmm.
is. Some people say, well, I'm not a morning person. Okay, but if your objective, if your goal is that you want to do a certain thing in the morning, then you have to stop that defeatist self-talk,
Yes.
and start to change your habits so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish.
I agree. I agree. And I think it goes to the point of, we make time for what we think is important.
Yeah.
And it goes into one of the things that James talks about in his book around habit stacking, which is another hack, is that you recognize that your habits are supported by other habits that you have with them. So if you think about it and you analyze, your habits, you'll start to see that, when I talk on the phone, I also eat. I know for me, I'm in my brain, if I'm watching a good show, that means I'm supposed to be eating something. Like, so those two habits are melded together for me,
Yeah.
eating and watching a TV show. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, one, it can work two ways. So undoing that habit or noticing that habit, if I'm trying to lose weight and be healthy, then I have to recognize I need to replace my eating while I'm watching TV. Or I need to hold this meal until I'm watching TV, and so that way I'm not overeating. But I think it also works, his way of using it as well is to group habits, that things that you're already doing, group it with something that you want to do. So for example, if every day you know that you go and you make coffee, then you can say, after I make my coffee, I'm going to journal. So if the thing that you're already doing is making coffee and you want to journal every day, then you say, after I make my coffee, I will journal. The coffee is going to trigger something in your brain to say, go journal. And before you know it, now you've stacked a habit. And so it's together and it's going to now be on autopilot. And I think that what that helps to do is to put your brain, I think that we often underestimate how much our brain has to overcome in order to do something new, in order to incorporate something new. Because most of the habits that we have, even if it's just waking up late, that's something that we've developed over time. We've practiced it. And so it's ingrained in our regular habits. And so taking the time to think about that and then stack habits on top of things you're already doing.
That's really a good point. And I really like that concept of habit stacking. And even in the example that you were giving about, connecting, making coffee to journaling. And one of the things that I thought as you were talking is the importance of making sure that your tools, whatever your tools are, that they are available to you, so that, once you make your coffee and now you're ready to journal, if you can't find your journal, okay, if you have to go on a, all out search, then that's going to undermine creating the habit.
Yes.
And so in order to, I guess another thing in order to change habits, is that, we have to be productive, in making sure that we are fully equipped, that our tools, are available. One of the hacks that I'd like to share, in terms of something really practical, one of the, practical things that can be done is to control the information, that you allow into your environment. And what I mean by controlling the information, is, when we decide that there are, certain things, certain steps, certain things that we need to do in order to, that certain things that are a part of our system for accomplishing our objective, then we have to allocate that time. And part of controlling the environment, could be doing things such as, turning off the notifications on your cell phone.
Yep.
So that you don't have, that disturbance, coming in, turning off the TV, so that whatever it is that you're doing, that it has your full attention, that your attention is not being divided, between, what you're attempting to accomplish, and what's going on the TV and what's going on the news. And sometimes, when you're not controlling your environment, you hear snippets, of different information that actually disturb you mentally or emotionally. If you hear, about another shooting, if you hear, about, we're in this COVID-19 environment, if you hear, about how the number of deaths have increased, that you start to internalize that.
Yes.
And as you internalize that, it starts to, it generates a negative, reaction, so that now your productivity starts to wane.
Mhm.
So I think it's just, really, one of the things that's just really, really important, is learning how to control, the environment, how to, set the atmosphere for success.
I agree. I agree with you. Something else that I'm thinking about, another hack that made me think about is um, having a finite amount of things that you want to accomplish for the day.
Yeah.
And I think that having that control over how many things, I do a daily highlight, and so my thing is there's one task per day that I know if I get this done, and that's the only thing that I get done, when I go to sleep tonight, I'll be okay. And so it's my daily highlight. Now I'll have other tasks, no more than 5. I'll have other tasks that I may want to get done, but those are things that I know that if I don't get it done, I'll be just fine. And so I had to really narrow my list down to this one thing, because before I would just try. I mean, it's like, when do you go to sleep? It's like I would just keep going and keep going and keep going. Well, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this. And it's like you may be able to do it that day, but you're wearing yourself out. So tomorrow you won't be as productive. And so it's like, if you want it to be, an everyday thing, you have to have a finite amount of things that you're trying to accomplish. And so having a daily highlight can help you to do that.
And this is it. The hack is about maximizing time, making the most of time, and, we all have, things that we all have things that we do. For instance, appointments, doctor's appointments, a dental appointment or whatever, where you're in a waiting room.
Yeah.
And, and that's time, that potentially could be, just lost, by sitting there. But if you want to, maximize your productivity, knowing that you're going to have, like maybe a 30-minute wait before you're called into the doctor's office, that could be a good time, to do some of the reading that you need to do, write down make some notes, about things that that you need to be, addressing, or whatever. You go to the hair salon, you're sitting under the dryer. That's a good time, that's some downtime, which you could make productive, by deciding, what am I going to do during these specific periods of time? Now, the reason that I call it, kind of a contradictory one, is that at the same time, we have to realize that we cannot be, I was going to say that we can't be productive all the time, but then I'm taking that back, because if you take advantage of these, this kind of downtime, waiting on your appointment to just relax.
Yes. Yeah.
To just rest, to be at peace. We talked about peace in our last workshop, to just be at peace. Relaxation has to also be an objective. It has to also be one of our goals, and I think when we take advantage of, we can also take advantage of those times to do nothing. And doing nothing, that's when it's planned, it's also productive.
I agree 100%. And I think that scheduling nothing time is important. I didn't have that as one of my hacks, but I think that that's something that I also do, is I give myself the leeway to say, today I'm doing nothing. I'm going to lay down, I'm going to be a couch potato. And it's those, after I have those periods of rest, of doing nothing, I'm 10 times more productive, because one, I feel like self-care is a key part of, being productive, because you have to realize that your body is a finite resource. Your mind is a finite resource. And so taking care of, myself personally, is my diet, exercising and getting rest. If I do those things, I know that I'm operating at my maximum capacity. The days that I'm not really productive, I'm sleepy, or I'm hungry, or I'm not eating well. And so I have brain fog. And so I think that taking care of yourself and scheduling that, specific downtime is really important, because you can't always be on. So this brings me to my next thought. My next hack is outsource, 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 outsource. So ladies that are watching this, I'm bringing you this tip straight from corporate America, because there is not a large company on this earth that does not outsource tasks. You cannot do everything. Even the thought that, and outsourcing doesn't necessarily mean offshore outsourcing, right? Outsourcing just means you have specific roles and responsibilities. You handle that. And what you cannot handle, you delegate to someone else. And so for me, I am a person that there is very, very little that I think that I cannot do. There's very little.
Okay.
Most of the time, I think that I can do it, and I probably can. I can figure it out with enough time and enough thought. But I think that what I'm learning and what I've learned and watched in corporate is that delegating tasks helps you to, one, get the job done quicker. If you're the jack of all trades, you become the expert of none. And I think that being an expert at something or doing something really well helps you to automate, right? So you can, people say, I can do it in my sleep, right? And so those things that you can do it in your sleep, then your brain can have a rest. It's kind of like it's operating without so much of your brain power. And so outsourcing or delegating tasks, figuring out who are the people in your life that you can leverage for this task, or using tools like Upwork.com, tools like that where you can outsource it. Fiverr, instead of getting online and creating that logo for your business, hire someone from Fiverr for $25 to do it. And now it's off of your mind. Now it's like clogging up your brain because you've outsourced that task. And trust and believe that someone who has been doing, because maybe that's their specialty and they do it well, it'll come out better than you doing it, because it's not your specialty and it may not be what you do well. So delegate it to someone else where you can.
My next hack, comes from the fact that, I watch a lot of planner videos on YouTube, and, planners who are using, different type of planning tools, different kinds of notebooks and whatever, and I noticed that in the planner community, that one thing that a lot of ladies, a lot of women are starting to include on their planners is that they are scheduling housework.
Wow.
They are scheduling housework, okay? Rather than saying, today I'm going to do it all from living room to kitchen to basement, or whatever. They are scheduling it, so that, for example, Monday, you clean and, you dust the living room and you vacuum or, whatever you need to do in the living room, maybe Tuesday is the bathrooms, and, Wednesday, could be a deeper dive into the kitchen or whatever. The whole point is, instead of overwhelming yourself, with, trying to do it all in one day, or either just, not being able to get it done, to schedule it just like you would any other, task or function, or duty or appointment that you might have, and the thing that, and I started doing this, and, I find it so satisfying, because instead of looking around and then seeing, what needs to be done, I know that needs to be done, but I'm going to do it on Thursday.
Yeah.
And so it takes away the anxiety. I don't have to, I'm not anxious about it, and it's not negatively impacting my productivity.
I love
You
that.
know. So yeah, so that was one that I was just I was just geeked to share.
I love that. I love that. And all of us know, especially if you're a person that your environment impacts. I know for me, I cannot be productive in a messy environment. You know, things have to be orderly, you know, and in order. And so if you know that you're that type of person, you know, pick the room that you did clean and work in that room. You know, work
Yeah,
in the messy room. Pick the
yeah.
room that you cleaned yesterday and work in that one. I have my final productivity hack, and it is being brought to you by every IT company that is moving forward. So, Agile is a philosophy that technology companies have been adopting since the 90s. And without going too deep into it, it's just a better way of working. And one of the things that we do in IT when your IT company is agile is we do tasks and then we have a retrospective. So every 2 weeks, we have a retrospective. And what that retrospective is we look over everything that we were supposed to do over the last 2 weeks. We call them sprints. We look over everything that we were supposed to do for the last 2 weeks. And we say, did we accomplish the sprint goal? So we set a goal. Did we accomplish the sprint goal? If not, why? And then how do we do better next time? So if we're rolling tasks into the next 2 weeks and we said we were going to get accomplished in these 2 weeks, what can we do differently so that we can accomplish it and not have more things rolling over? And sometimes what that is we don't put so many more tasks in the 2 weeks. We take out certain tasks, or we think about maybe this wasn't supposed to go to this team member. So my final hack is thinking about agile in your life. So instead of having a weight loss goal, for example, that says by June, and it's January, by June, I want to lose 30 pounds. Review your weight loss every 2 weeks. And it may not be you lost so many pounds in the last 2 weeks, but review the things that could be contributing to that. So review, what did you eat for the last 2 weeks? How much water did you drink for the last 2 weeks? How many times did you work out for the last 2 weeks? And if those things are not to your liking, then you improve it. And so you make these small improvements over time within these what we call 2-week sprints. Your sprint can be 3 days, it can be a week, however long, but take that time to sit down and have the retrospective and review. That also makes me think of something I was going to talk about with from James's book, where he talked about the 1% improvement daily. And we're going to do a video specifically for finance, many videos about finance. But this 1% rule is something that I've implemented, particularly for my finances, that I've made a goal to save 1% more and spend 1% less every 2 weeks or every paycheck or whatever way that I've organized my finances. And I think that that's important. The 1% is important because 1% over time makes a big difference. And so if you just 1%, so if you're trying to lose weight, for example, instead of thinking about, I'm going to take out all of the junk food, how about you just eat one less cookie a day? I'm going to get rid of all the meat. Maybe you eat meat at 2 meals versus 3 meals. And so that 1% improvement, or these small improvements over 2 weeks, can really add up. And now you're creating a new habit by doing that 1% or by doing that small improvement, over time. You guys, hopefully you have picked up some tips, some tricks, some habits to be able to be more productive, especially during this time where the majority of us are quarantined or we're at home. This is going to, hopefully help you to establish a new way of working, that when we do go back to life as normal, whatever that means, that we still have systems and habits in place that will help us to accomplish our long-term goals. Thank you again, Pastor Elaine.